You're listening to TLN Radio, a member of the Nation Network of Podcasts and delivered by DoorDash.
What's up, everyone? We hope you enjoyed your Christmas holidays. You're tuned into episode 16 of the Leafsnation Radio Podcast. Caroline here with Scott, Kyle, Nick. We had a great holiday. Boys, talk to me about what you guys did. Nick, starting with you. How was it?
It was good. There was one thing I'm not going to say because it was bad, but it was good. I spent time with my family. My girlfriend and I are trying to move out, so we got a lot of stuff, like toasters and air fryers and everything else. So yeah, it was really fun. It was a nice little break, and I wish the break went on longer.
Right. I think that Mike and I might have been the only people during the pandemic not to get an air fryer. And I'm not proud of that. Like it's not like we don't want one. We just haven't gotten around to it. But I feel like an air fryer might be borderline life-changing.
It's sort of like a mini oven. I mean, it's pretty cool. I want to get an Instapot though, because that one's cool as well.
Well, awesome. Scott, how are your holidays?
Oh, it was really good. I went back to my parents' place while I'm still here to visit them, and we didn't do a whole lot, obviously, because of the COVID outbreaks, but we just opened gifts and played a lot of games.
Awesome. It's the best kind of vacation or staycation, whatever you want to call it, holiday. Yeah. And Kyle, what's up?
Yeah, doing good. Was nice to be back from Toronto back to Strathroy, Ontario here in the childhood bedroom, which is why we've got the 2008 NHL bedding over there, which has the Atlanta Thrashers on it still, which is how you know it's very old. And about 90% of the logos have now changed. But no, good to be back home. Good to see the family and everything like that. And yeah, World Juniors time now. So right back into the swing of things.
Perfect. Yeah. Same with me here. It was nice to take some days off, and perfect aside from how cold it is here in Edmonton. I think today with the wind chill, it's minus 50, which is concerning. It's like one of those things that when you go outside, and for me, obviously women, we wear mascara. When we come back inside, our eyelashes are frozen. All our makeup's off our face. It's quite interesting here in Edmonton this time of the year, but a very, very nice holiday. So it was good to have that time off. And we do actually have a lot to cover on this episode of the Leafsnation Radio Podcast, so we can get right into it. And Kyle, as you mentioned, we'll talk a little bit about the World Juniors here in a bit. But first, let's kind of give everyone an update on the COVID-19 protocol in Leafs land. Dubas spoke to the media the other day and said between the Leafs and Marlies, the Marlies had 24 players and 5 staff test positive for COVID-19. The Leafs had 14 players and 7 staff members between active roster players and reserve players. The game, obviously, on Wednesday against the Penguins has been rescheduled. So the next time the Leafs are expected to play is on January 1st versus the Sens. Crazy times. We're seeing this again across the league. It's not only going on in Toronto, but I feel like Toronto, when I read that and I heard Dubas say that, I feel like it's really bad in Ontario. Do you guys have anything to say to that, being in Ontario yourselves?
Yeah, it's been spiking quite a bit recently. And yeah, for the Leafs, especially when Dubas said like they don't have like anybody to call up on NHL contracts right now, because it's not just the Leafs, it's also the Marlies that are going through things even worse right now when you look at some of the numbers of how many people are in COVID protocol and things like that. So if the Marlies were maybe a fully healthy roster and things like that, maybe the Wednesday game could be played. But as it is right now, or at least as it was yesterday with the initial practices and stuff, the Leafs had like 11 available forwards, 5 available defensemen, like 2 of which had played in the NHL this year, 1 healthy goalie, things like that. And it just didn't make sense to have the last kind of week postponed and then have the Leafs go back to play and they have this completely depleted roster. So hopefully by the time that Sens game rolls around, they'll be able to ice an actual roster. Yeah. But for right now, it was the smart decision.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the same. I think they still do need another goaltender and another defenseman, because there wasn't a defenseman added today. So
at least one on an NHL contract.
Yeah. So unless like they decide to be like, oh, let's sign somebody to a PTO or whatever, like someone would have to be added before January 1st. And then I don't know how that works. I don't know whether or not they even like would have cap space for that or anything, but like, I don't know. It's all really weird and up in the air and all confusing. And I don't know. It sucks, especially in Toronto right now with all the cases and everything. It's not the best.
Well, I think PTOs wouldn't count against the cap at all. They'd be on the roster, but like anyone else could sign them. Is like the risk to just having them on a PTO.
The big question is I don't think in the NHL PTOs are allowed to play games. I think that's the thing.
I feel like I've heard players play PTOs in like the regular season. I think it's a thing that doesn't happen often because players don't want to play without like insurance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like it's easier.
We'll ask Earl about that or something.
Yeah. It's a good thing that games are getting canceled because I don't know if anyone here watched the Raptors game last night, but they got like absolutely destroyed. I think it was like 144-99 was the final score. Because I think they had like 2 actual Raptors in their starting lineup, never mind their bench roster. So yeah, it's probably a good thing that they're not rolling out a mostly Marlies team against Pittsburgh on Wednesday.
I will say the fan of chaos in me would kind of want to see that. Like I want to see Philip Kral on a top pairing in the NHL.
Oh, that'd be so fun.
You know what? If anything, it'd be a nice redemption story against the Penguins of all teams.
Yeah, exactly.
Where we can finally
blow
blow them out with their AHL roster.
It's interesting because we're talking about how things should be postponed or should be canceled. And we know in the IIHF world, they canceled once again the U18 Women's World Championship, and this is for the second year in a row now due to COVID-19. However, the Men's World Junior Championships are obviously continuing. Why is it so quick that the women's side is dismissed and not postponed, and the men's wasn't even considered to be postponed? It's just like play on. I think it shows a lack of respect for women's hockey and maybe even, all the top female hockey players in the world trying to pave the way, trying to earn respect for the game that they play, trying to make that change for younger generations. And the IIHF is just so quick to cancel, not postpone. And it must be so hard for the women to just be like, well, the men are playing, but how about us? Thoughts on that, considering the fact that I'm watching the World Juniors and there's no one in the stands, and I'm thinking this 100% should have been postponed.
It's so frustrating. And it's the fact that it's back-to-back years, the fact that the men's U20 tournament is going, but the women's U18 can't go, the fact that earlier this year, they postponed and moved around the men's U18 tournament, but the women's one is canceled, all these things. So I think first off, I think most people would agree that it probably doesn't make sense for any of these international tournaments to be played in the next month, at least, things like that. The women's U18s was supposed to be in Sweden, where it was supposed to be last year. And one of the main issues is that the IIHF doesn't really cover the additional costs. It's the federations that are hosting. So this year, with it being in Canada, things like that for the U20s on the men's side, Hockey Canada covers the additional costs of COVID testing, things like that. Last year for the men's U18s, it was the U.S. Hockey Federation that covered the cost of COVID testing, moving it from Michigan to Texas, those kind of things. And the Swedish Hockey Federation either doesn't have the funds or doesn't want to cover those costs for the women's U18s. So that's where the main issue comes about. But then you just look at what's happening right now, and the Swedish Hockey League is playing games. So why is it that the pro league there can play games, but the U18 tournament can't be played? So I think a lot of the frustration comes from it being canceled outright, like you mentioned, rather than just being postponed. I don't know why you can't move around some of the U18 schedule. Like, for example, this year, I'm pretty sure the U20s were supposed to be in Sweden, and then they traded basically slots with Canada so they could kind of ensure it happens again. So it happens back-to-back years in Edmonton Red Deer, And then in 2024, I think it is, and when it was supposed to be a Canadian date, it becomes a Swedish date. I don't know why you can't do something like that with the women's U18s and swap it in with a federation that is willing to host and cover costs. I think we saw the Ontario Federation come out and be like, hey, we'll do this and cover costs and things like that. So it's super, super frustrating, because I think the important point is, regardless of any political stuff, money, whatever, funding, the important part here is that this is an age gapped tournament for U18 players that has now missed 2 years, which means an entire generation of players that normally would be representing their country here either for the first time or for their only time aren't going to get that opportunity. And I would actually argue that the women's U18s are even more important to their careers than the men's U18s or anything like that, because this is the big tournament where U18 players from around the world get scouted by NCAA schools and get scholarships because of it, which is not something that is as important on the men's side of things, because they're either already playing junior or already playing in big programs where they're already getting scouted. It's not as much the case on the women's side. And so I think there was a few stories that were put out there specifically by European players that had played in U18s that had been scouted because of that and had gotten scholarships and played in the NCAA, and their careers go on from there. So it's just a lot of frustration right now, because it's pretty clear where the emphasis lies for the IIHF and things like that, which unfortunately isn't that surprising, but hopefully we see this remedied and we do get to see a women's U18s at some point this year.
That's exactly it. And that's exactly what I was thinking about when I heard the news. When I was obviously I played soccer, didn't play hockey, but I went to the U17 World Cup. And because I had the opportunity to represent Canada at the Junior World Cup, I ended up getting a full ride to go play Division I collegiate soccer, because when you go into these camps to the World Cup, scouts actually come and watch your national camps. So when we were in Alabama, a whole bunch of Division I collegiate scouts came to watch our trainings, came to watch our exhibition games. And then when you go and play on a big stage like the World Cup, everyone knows who you are. Everyone has your stats. Everyone, knows your position, your name. And it was such a big opportunity for us at a young age to be recognized by scouts. And that's the thing, when you're in Canada, obviously I'm going to speak for, female soccer players. The goal is to go play in the US. So when I heard that, I'm like, it's got to be so tough for these young women who have probably trained every single day of their lives to go and play on a stage like that, of that scale. And all of a sudden it not even be postponed, to just be canceled and not have that opportunity to go and represent Canada and maybe even progress their career or have the tournament of their lives, or just honest to God, the experience and opportunity to do something bigger than you thought. So my heart really goes out to them, because it's not fair. And Haley Wickenheiser put out this tweet, saying women's U18 minus $, World Juniors, she put a bunch of $, and it says it's nothing to do with safety. If they can pull off the World Juniors, where there is a will, there is always a way. And I question the will part. So, it's tough for women who are just constantly fighting for the respect of their sport and who have done, a lot in the sport. It's just frustrating when it's a continuous battle and things like this happen.
Yeah, I'm going to quote Lewis Hamilton here from the start of the 2020 season, when they were almost going to keep racing regardless of the pandemic. But cash is king in this kind of scenario. Like the World Juniors, the IIHF knows that even if they don't have people in the stands, they can probably make enough money just on revenue alone to make, or like TV revenue alone. Mm-hmm. While that's probably not going to be the case in an empty stadium with the women's game, which is still unfortunate. Like they really either should have canceled both or went on with both, because it really should be more about, as like you've been talking about, giving the women this opportunity to further their hockey careers. But unfortunately, they've just kind of been robbed of that at this point, while the men's teams, even though they also are playing their normal seasons where they would be getting scouted regardless, are now also getting another tournament where they can get scouted even more. And it really shouldn't be the case, but it sucks that it is.
It doesn't make sense, because like as much as you talk about the NHL wanting to grow the game, the IIHF should have that same want. And if, like, I remember when the Hockey Hall of Fame was, when they were inducting everyone, Kim St. Pierre, like, you talk about how much like the women's game can be grown and how important it is to have little girls who want to be able to play the game. And just to see the men's side being able to play, but not the women's side, because of, again, like you said, Caroline, like if they want to have that played, they will have it played. Like it's not a thing of whether or not it can be, because it can. The men's side is playing right now. So it's a constant struggle. And it feels like at this point, they're going backwards with it. It doesn't make sense, because if, again, the men's side can play, why can't the women's side? It sucks, because it's another opportunity to grow the game. It's another opportunity for these young women to further their careers and get scouted and go play. I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
It's tough, and I'll speak from a female perspective. It's tough because growing up, I remember playing soccer. I'm like, okay, if you go to the Olympics, you go to the World Cup, that's the biggest thing you could achieve in women's soccer. But then it's like, if you want to continue playing, like, you work day in and day out to be this athlete, to be the soccer player. But at that moment in time, when I was growing up, the WUSL, the professional league in the US for women, kept collapsing because there wasn't enough funding. And then you would have to think about going overseas and not making, you'd hear about these female athletes who were playing soccer and working a job on the side. And I'm like, that's just ludicrous to me. It's insane. And even when we went to the U17 World Cup, we had to fundraise our way to get there. Like, if we didn't fundraise the money to go to New Zealand, we wouldn't have been able to even go, which is just so mind blowing to me. I think that we've got a long way to go. I think we've done a lot in since when I played, but I think the bottom line is, at some point in time, even when it comes down to money, the question shouldn't be about how much money can we make off of the women's game versus the men's game. It should be, how do we equally respect both genders, and it not be a conversation anymore of, okay, it's COVID, we have to play the World Juniors because we're going to make money, and we're just going to flat out cancel the women's game because the women's tournament because we're not going to make any money. Like, it's just, that's the problem I have. What about the women's team and all the work that they've put in? What about the lives and the sacrifice these female athletes have had to do? And then imagine how deflating it is reading that your tournament is canceled and the men's tournament is still playing at like 50% capacity for fans. And we all know, watching these games, there isn't even 50%. So it's just, it infuriates me. I think we've come a long way, but I think that there's still so much that women have to fight through, unfortunately. But I hope we get to a point where this isn't a conversation anymore.
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, like I was gonna say, even like with like the whole concept of like how much money it makes, it's very short-sighted of them in a sense, because the thing with building something is you make an investment where it hurts you initially financially, but then you work on it and you grow it to the point where eventually they're going to be making 10 times the money out of the women's game. So like, this is such a great opportunity right now with no other hockey on aside from the World Juniors to have that tournament. And you would probably get eyes if you put investment into like finding ways to broadcast it, whether that be getting a TV deal or Twitch streaming, is we're seeing the women's, the PHF do that. So like, it's got to be a long-term outlook for it if you really want, because if you keep looking at it from a short-term perspective, you aren't going to grow it, because you're going to keep not wanting to put effort into building it. But then by not putting in any effort into building it, come next year, it's not going to be built anymore. So you're not going to put any more effort into building it once again.
It's such a great point.
Yeah, and TSN, according to Gord Miller, at least, we're going to be broadcasting the U18s in January as well. So it would have had a platform, likely decent production quality with that as well, which has been an issue in the past for the women's U18s. The last time they played in 2019, it was in Slovakia, and it was basically one like fisheye lens that was showing the entire rink, and that was another big issue. So TSN has consistently shown involvement in Hockey Canada, things like that. Especially with it being an Olympic cycle, it would have been a big year to promote future Olympians and things like that. So it's frustrating from all that kind of stuff. And I think at this point, you just kind of have to hope for a positive outcome out of this, whether that be something is rescheduled and it results in more eyeballs on the tournament when it does get played, or more funding when it does get played. The thing that I'm hoping for is that a lot of people look at the women's U18s and call it the equivalent to the men's U20s, the World Juniors, which isn't really the case to me, because there's a men's U18s, there's a women's U18s, there's a women's World Championships, there's a men's World Championships, but there's no women's U20s, but there is a men's U20s, and that's the big money maker for the World Juniors, is what we call it, instead of the U20s. So my hope is that with this generation of U18 players missing 2 years, they would still be eligible if there was a U20 tournament. So my hope is that they do end up making a women's U20 tournament and kind of have it as a true equivalent to the men's World Juniors. Have it either as like a side-by-side thing or one after the other, something like that, and create that, because there's no reason why there should be 3 levels of men's tournaments, but not on the women's side as well. So at this point, we'll see how things go. We'll see if a tournament ends up getting played. We'll see if it gets moved to Ontario or something like that, or if it does end up getting postponed, or whether it does just get canceled outright and we kind of have to wait a whole nother year and have 2 years in between the women's U18s. But hopefully something good comes out of this whole kind of debacle here.
Kyle hitting us with the silver lining, and I'm going to clip that entire little segment that you just said and send it to the IIHF and say, here's your next great idea.
Well, on top of that, I tweeted it out yesterday as well, but the Norwegian Federation had that kind of initial statement as well, where they talked about needing to reschedule things, not only for the top flight, but also for the lower flights, because Norway is a growing hockey country, both on the men's and women's sides. And they were talking about the D1A tournament being postponed and things like that. And they brought up the fact that a U20 tournament doesn't exist for the women's side as well. So it's something that's at least being pushed by at least one federation. We'll see how things go from there. But it just makes a lot of sense to me, because you've got U18, which is going into college and things like that. But if you have a U20 tournament, there's going to be some crossover with the main national team, and there's a lot more advertising and things you can do with that. So it just makes a lot more sense to me.
Absolutely. All right. So we've expressed how we felt about that, and we can just hope that positive change comes from this entire situation and people put their heads together and understand what's right and what's wrong. But let's move on. Team Canada played their first game in the World Juniors tournament against the Czech Republic. This was a funny game to have on TV, because we watched and we were like, this is Canada's game. And then all of a sudden, like, you hear 1 goal scored and then 2 goals, and then it just kept on going back and forth. And I'm like, oh my goodness, are we going to lose? But Canada ended up winning the game 6-3, a massive hattie from Owen Power. As we all know, he became the first defenseman to get the hat trick for Canada at the tournament. Again, a crazy game. I think a lot of Canadian fans were at the edge of their seat for the first little bit of it, a little worried, a little concerned, but Canada pulled through, which is all that matters. Maybe it was a first game of the tournament jitters, which again, these are young kids. It happens. Players that we think really stood out, like Owen Power, and thoughts on Team Canada's first performance.
Yeah, it was kind of the classic junior experience in the first period, especially, where you have one team that's heavily favored and things like that, and then all of a sudden there's like 6 goals in the first period, which
crazy.
If you've ever watched a CHL game, that happens basically twice a night. And so in terms of standout players, Owen Power is obviously the big one. He's the reigning first overall pick. He decided to go back to Michigan partly so he could get the experience to play here. He was supposed to play at the tournament last year, but didn't end up doing so because of COVID concerns, crossing the border, being at school, all those kind of things. And what a way to kind of make your debut for Canada at the World Juniors, going out and scoring the first ever hat trick for a defenseman for Canada. And I laughed out loud at the last or at the hat trick goal, where he's the defenseman on a 5-on-3 and he's at the goal line banging in a rebound, which was pretty funny. But that kind of goes to show the thought process for the Canadian defense, where they're looking to get down low, a lot of movement, things like that. And it was working well as the game went along. So for the Czech Republic, or Czechia now, I should say, they came out of the gates very strong. They kept up Canada's pace through the first period. They faltered as the game went along, but that's a strong opening game for them in a tournament where Canada's pretty handedly going to get that first place result as long as they can get a game or a win against Finland at the end of the at the end of the prelims here. But second place is pretty wide open with a relatively weaker rest of the group there. So Czechia is absolutely in the hunt for second place. And when you look at some of those crossover games, a potential spot in the top two spots is going to be a lot nicer than trying to face USA or Sweden in the quarterfinals there. But the other player I'll give a shout out to for a strong game was Cole Perfetti as well. He had 3 assists in that game, coming over from Manitoba in the AHL. He's a player that's going to be leaned on as a veteran with a bit of a younger group of Canadian forwards there. When you look at Shane Wright being the first line center who's draft eligible this year, Connor Bedard mixing in a bit as a draft -2 as well, or draft -1, sorry. And he had a nice game with 3 assists, a really nice assist to Donovan Sabrango in the first period as well. And so Canada took a little bit to find their groove, but once they got into that second period, it was kind of more that classic Team Canada experience we kind of expect.
I'm excited to see Connor Bedard. That's like, there's
He's a
I know
lot of fun.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of, like, even Shane Wright too, but I don't know, Connor Bedard just being 16 and just being able to see what he can do. And it's Kent Johnson, right? The other one who's like
the
really
one
skilled,
from Michigan, yeah.
and he's like the one who would not be afraid to pull off any move. And
Yeah.
Those two guys are players. Like, if he was able to pull off the Michigan, I'm good. That's the tournament for me. Turn the TV off after that.
I just love seeing hockey players before they enter the NHL so free with the media and having fun and joking. Like, I'm watching them on TV in their little like player profile segments or just segments that Hockey Canada is doing. And I'm like, they're so young and they're not overthinking things and they're having fun and you see their personalities. And I'm like, oh, just stay this way when you go into the NHL and don't let NHL media training get to you. And just they seem like a really cool, fun group. And you obviously, exactly like what you said, Kyle, I think that it was the first game of the tournament jitters. And that first period was a little shaky, but once they started to understand that they're fine and that they've done this before and that they're the best team in the tournament, probably, I don't want to jinx, they played the way that we know that Canada can play. So
I didn't get to catch any of the games yesterday because I was busy, but I'm happy to see my teams, Finland and USA, pull out big wins yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah. Probably won't follow Canada too much this year because of that, but I'll watch games if they're on. But
why, Scott? Is it because Canada's just so good that you want someone else to win?
Sort of. I'm mostly just rooting for Leafs prospects. So like Finland has Niemela and Hirvonen, okay. And USA has Nies. Is that how you pronounce it? Nies, or is it Nice? Nice. Yeah. Nies. Yeah. That'd be quite the name to have in the NHL. But yeah, no, I just like watching Leafs prospects. So I don't know, maybe Team Canada should just learn that Leafs prospects are the superior player.
They did leave one at home. So
yeah, they really should just have Leafs prospects on the team. And I would gladly, cheer for them again. But it's been a while. I think last time they had one was Ian Scott, and even then he was the backup. Yeah. So
the last time they had a skater for Team Canada was Mitch Marner. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with saying that, do you think Canada's going to win the tournament, Scott?
Oh, probably.
You're so funny.
They always have the best shot. Like, yeah.
What do you guys think, Nick and Kyle?
Yeah, Canada's going to win. I mean, who else? Like, I know USA is pretty good, but Finland is. Would you say Finland's like the second team that's close enough?
The second one for me is Sweden, actually, because they've got a relatively deep team, but if you're looking at first line, top pairing, and goaltender, kind of like the core of the team, I'd argue actually they have the best first unit in the tournament because they've got William Eklund, who played games at the beginning of the year for San Jose. He could be in the NHL right now. They've got Alexander Holtz, who's a goal scorer prospect for the Devils. He could be in the NHL right now. And they've got Oscar Olausson, who's a Colorado prospect on the opposite wing, who's another goal scorer. So they've got an extremely dangerous top line. Their top pairing has Simone Edvinsson, who's looking like the next great Detroit defenseman prospect. He scored a breakaway goal short-handed yesterday, for example, against Russia. And then they've got arguably the best goalie in the tournament as well in Jesper Wallstedt, who's got a 920 plus save percentage in one of the best leagues in the entire world, in the Swedish league. So if there's a team that's going to be a big dangerous one for Canada, I would actually look at Sweden, but Finland's got some good pieces there. USA is always deep in a strong team, but Sweden is that other one that I'm really looking at as a potential tournament winner there alongside Canada.
Kyle, if you had to put your money on Canada or Sweden right now, and I'm talking about like you could win $1 million, who would you pick?
I would pick Canada if I get same odds, but I will admit that I do have a very expensive $1 bet on Sweden to win the tournament because it was very good odds. So.
Okay, this is interesting. This is interesting. So let's talk about Leafs prospects. Scott,
yes,
maybe you can.
I'm always down for that.
Yeah. You guys take the wheel here because this is I feel like Kyle's like our double IIHF expert right now. And Scott,
it's not healthy.
Yeah.
Like I was following like the D2A tournament in December. Like it's not healthy.
Okay, perfect. Let's talk about I'm sure everyone here would love to know everything we need to know about Leafs prospects. So go ahead, guys.
I'll let Kyle take the floor here because he is a lot more of a prospects expert.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, I've done back-to-back prospect roundups, so it's a busy time. But for Leafs prospects here, we've got 3 at this tournament: 2 on Finland and Topi Niemela, who's the reigning top defenseman at the tournament, and Roni Hirvonen, who's team captain for Finland as well. And then, as Scott mentioned, Matthew Nyes for Team USA. And so all 3 of them are going to be playing big roles for their countries. Roni Hirvonen's a first-line forward for Finland. Topi Niemela is the workhorse defenseman for Finland. Matthew Nyes is a second-line forward for Team USA and a power play guy. So if you tune into those games, you're going to be getting a lot of those Leafs prospects. And for Finland, like Nick mentioned there, they're a strong team, but if they're going to succeed, it's going to be on the backs of those 2 Leafs prospects there. Hirvonen had an assist in the first game there. He in last year's tournament, he scored the last minute game-winning goal in the quarterfinals against Sweden. So he's got some experience in the clutch there. And then for Matthew Nyes, this is actually his first major tournament for Team USA. And he scored in the opener, the actual first goal of the tournament for Team USA on the power play. But it was also an even more special goal for him because his family and his brother actually are all from Slovakia. And so growing up in Arizona, he's the first one of his family to be born in the US, but at home he spoke Slovakian and things like that. And so to play his first major tournament game for Team USA against Slovakia and get a goal and stuff like that was really cool to see for him yesterday. But 3 Leafs prospects at the World Juniors this year and all playing pretty big roles. So should get quite a bit of them over the next couple of weeks here. Kyle
Cushman, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, this is why I let him talk.
Yeah, this guy did his homework. MVP. I'm just kidding. But you are.
Yeah. I will add at the very least that it's nice to see Leafs prospects playing such a big role in the tournament, even though the Leafs themselves haven't really had too many high-end draft picks.
None of them are first rounders.
Yeah, so it just goes to speak about how amazing Kyle Dubas is at drafting and filling out our prospect depth, which was very lacking after the Mark Hunter regime.
I love it, guys. All right, anything else we want to say about the World Juniors before we? I don't know. We can talk. First of all, anything else we want to say about the World Juniors?
The last thing I'll say is keep an eye on Team Slovakia.
Okay.
They've got a lot of upset potential. They had a great game last night to round out the first day of the tournament against Team USA, narrowly losing 3-2. But the big thing for them is that they're such a young team. Their core forwards are all draft eligibles for either 2022 or 2023. They've got a top defenseman prospect as well on that team. So if you're looking for a fun underdog team to follow, Slovakia is the one to follow here. They've got big upset potential. Yep.
I always love cheering for the dark horse. I have to say,
exactly.
I'm talking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Germany was a lot of fun last year.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. All
remember.
right. So that is your World Championship update, the World Juniors. And if you guys need any more info, you know where to find Kyle Cushman on Twitter. I'm sure he'll answer all your questions and battle you on any kind of take.
Yeah.
Right now, quickly, before we wrap up this episode, Mitch Marner returned to practice on Boxing Day, which is December 26th. This was his first practice with the team. The last game he played was on December 1st against the Avs. He had 2 assists on that night. 6 goals, 15 assists in 24 games played for Mitch Marner. This is such an encouraging sign for the Leafs. Obviously, when they return to play, they've had some time off, as a lot of teams in the NHL have had because of COVID-19. So this is going to be kind of like an interesting return to hockey for these athletes. My heart actually does go out to them. It's a lot of adversity that they're going through, but such a positive kind of for Mitch Marner, because this time off may have given him a little bit more time to not rush back into playing. And now he's back on the ice practicing, and we're going to get Mitch Marner back, which we all know there's always a lot of eyeballs on Mitchy Marner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Nick.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, it's just going to be nice to see that Matthews and Bunting and Marner line reunited, because they were clicking pretty good before Marner got hurt, which happened in practice of all things. But if you're trying to find any like silver linings to all the postponements and stuff, the Leafs were supposed to have Marner out for a minimum of 10 games with him being on LTIR. Instead, I think it ends up being like 6 games or something like that, because it's 10 games or 24 days. And so with the postponements and stuff, the 10 games isn't met, but the 24 days is. So he should be back for the next game. And obviously that's a big boost to the lineup when you have no clue who's going to be available to actually play in that game. So
I know one of the things Dubas said yesterday was that, well, first of all, he did kind of hint at if there was a game on Wednesday, Marner might play. He said it might not happen, but it looks like he probably will play on Saturday. But he also said that when there was the shutdown, like Marner missed a few days of rehab because they weren't allowed to go into the facilities. So they're obviously not going to rush him back, but there's a lot of time now between now and Saturday. So he'll be back. He'll be back. He'll be there. He's already in line rushes with Matthews and Bunting, like Kyle said. So he'll be there.
It was very big brain of him to get injured so he didn't get COVID.
Yeah.
But
strategy.
It'll be nice to have him back in the lineup, fill out the top 2 lines a little bit more. I like the top line was doing fine with like whenever they had Kosh or Simmons on there, but it'll be nice to actually have all 4 of them back on there, because like that, as Kyle was saying, that top line of Bunting, Matthews, and Marner was like really clicking. I think when I was writing about like the biggest surprises earlier this week and talking about Michael Bunting, that line had like a 70% expected goals for together, which is like absolutely insane. Like they never hit anything like that with Hyman on the line. So
don't tell Oilers fans. Is there anything else before we do our song of the week? Anything else you guys want to talk about? Maybe about an article that you've written or anything else that we haven't touched on that's going on in Toronto?
I got nothing.
Nothing really. Just the usual plug for the weekly prospect roundups for me.
Awesome.
My article plug will come with the song. So
okay, perfect. Okay, I'll start my song off. I watched Don't Look Up yesterday on Netflix. And I'm like the number 1 Ariana Grande fan. So my songs, I think it's called Look Up, Just Look Up. It's like not a great song by any means, but it's always stuck in my head because I love her. And the movie was interesting. If you guys haven't seen it, it's about an asteroid or comet that's coming to Earth, and it's going to hit Earth. There's a 100% chance. And it's just a very, very good movie. So I enjoyed that. I love Leonardo DiCaprio. Fun fact, he's my favorite actor of all time. And same with Meryl Streep. They're both in it. And Jennifer Lawrence. It's just like an all-star cast. Something nice to turn on if there's nothing else that you guys want to watch. So that's my song this week is an Ariana Grande one.
Nice. I'll go next. I did get one here over the little stretch here. It's World Juniors time. So we got to go one that fits that theme. So I'm going to go with Them Kids by Sam Roberts Band. Just a nice little happy song there.
Nice.
I thought you were going to say that song that Canada uses as their goal song, and I was going to hate you for it.
Okay, the problem with that is that I've got a hot take, and I don't like that goal song.
Oh, I don't either.
Okay, good, because everyone loves it. So I'm not a...
On top of going to a World Juniors game when they were in Buffalo a few years back and they routed the other team, so I heard that all the time. It was also a cheer at my school that heard all the time, and it just like was not a good cheer. Like, because I'm a Laurier Golden Hawk, so it was like they kind of change it where it's just like, I want to know if you'll be my hawk, and it's like so like you hear that enough both from Team Canada and from school. I'm like, I could go with never hearing that song again.
Yeah, it's
no Hall & Oates.
Big facts.
Who's next?
I'll let you go, Nick.
You let me go. Okay. Well, I mean, I don't really like. I have a song. It's "Cold Hard" by Elton John and Dua Lipa, and
nice.
I don't know how you pronounce. It's like PNAU, but
don't overthink it. If that's your song, just say it.
I'm just trying to think of the person's name who's on this song too, but I don't know.
What's the song called?
It's called "Cold Heart."
Cold Heart.
I
like Dua Lipa, so
yeah, that's why. That's one of the things is like I like Dua Lipa. Elton John's always a cool artist to be on songs these days, and them coming together and making one was pretty cool, and it's a pretty cool song.
Okay, awesome. Dua Lipa and her boyfriend broke up, so that's another fun fact. All right, Scott.
Shine. No, I'm kidding. So for those who know me, know that at the end of every year, I like to do a few articles of just like my favorites of the year, music-wise. I've been doing it for about 5 years, but it's kind of slowly grown bigger and bigger. The first time I did it, it was just 10 songs. Now I do top 10 hit songs, so like songs that charted at some point throughout the year.
Nice.
Top 20 albums, and then top 69 songs of the year.
Nice.
I went with 69 because a couple years ago I just ended up having a list of like 69 songs that I liked. I'm like, okay, I have to go with that.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I could make it bigger this year. I have like 200 I still have to narrow down from for the list, but so I won't give away too much or anything from my top albums or top songs list, but I will pull a random one. I literally hit shuffle before we went on this just to pick one.
Yay.
And not say where on the list it is still. Ooh. But one of my hit songs of the year is One Right Now by Post Malone and The Weeknd. I think it's...
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. It's just like it's got such a really nice beat to it, and I also really like the clashing harmonies between Post Malone and The Weeknd, because Post Malone has a much lower register and The Weeknd can hit those higher notes. So it just like I always really like those like different vocal ranges working well in a song, especially if it's like male versus female, but even like a male that can hit those high notes as well. It just always sounds really good.
I love Post Malone. I saw him live in Vegas, and he sounds just like he does when you listen to him on the radio or wherever you listen to him. And what was I going to say? I found out my fiance told me that the way he got his name, do you guys know how he came up with Post Malone?
Didn't he do like a randomizer or something like that?
Yes, he went into like a random name generator on the internet, and Post Malone came out. It was the first one. He's like, yeah, sick. What a legend. I would have overthought that. Like, you have no idea. Like, what do I got? Like Lil C, Perfetti or not. Like, I don't know. I would have like 1000% overthought that. And Post Malone's like, let's let the generator pick it out. Smart.
Yeah. As someone who's been in a few bands in his time, coming up with the name is an oddly really hard part of creating it.
Where is this? Where is this coming out on the Leafsnation.com?
No, I have my own little side blog that is originally supposed to be for a lot of other like non-hockey things, but I never actually post on it. At the start of the pandemic, I started doing a lot more album reviews on it, but yeah, I just keep getting busy and forget about it. I might try and do more top 10 lists on it, but the blog is called Scott's Room.
Perfect.
If you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, Twitter handle is at SCOTMAXW. Instagram is ScottyMax97. Yeah, I'll be sharing it on there as well. So it's
perfect. All right, guys. I love music. So I'm always open to like listening to anything aside from like the mosh pit. No offense, like the hardcore
No, it's
stuff.
okay.
I just don't know when to like listen to that kind of music. When I work out, it's like it's almost too much for me. And then when I'm chilling, I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. But I appreciate all kinds of music. So I'll definitely be checking that out.
I pride myself with these lists at the fact that like people go through them and most of them won't know most of the songs, but like everyone will know a few different ones. So yeah. I think that kind of speaks to especially my albums list this year, I feel like has a lot more variety to it than it has in years past. So awesome. I'm excited to see how they go up. Takes a lot though. It's like 4,000 or 5,000 words each. So
when is this out? Like for Jan 1 or prior to the new year?
I released them on the last 3 days.
Nice.
So hit songs will be coming out on the 29th. Albums will be the 30th. And the top songs will be on the 31st.
Awesome.
I'm trying not to leave it to the night before because I've done that before and it sucks. But we'll see how that goes.
Okay, awesome. All right, guys, that's been episode 16 of the Leafsnation Radio Podcast. We'll be back here next Monday, which is January 3rd. So we should have a Leafs game to talk about. Right now, everyone stay healthy, stay safe. If you're still relaxing from the holidays, enjoy your time off. Don't worry about dieting and not eating sweets. You guys enjoy yourself. Have a glass of wine. I think that when it's winter time and it's so cold, especially here in Edmonton, and Cassie's coming in to say bye to everyone as I say this. I think that, we need to enjoy our lives and not worry so much about every little thing. So happy holidays, everyone. I'm going to extend them an extra week because I feel like it. And we'll be back here next Monday with probably more World Juniors talk and definitely some more Leafs talk.
Thanks for listening to TLN Radio, a member of the Nation Network of Podcasts and delivered by DoorDash. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and never miss an episode.